The monitors didn't just go black. They stayed black, long enough for the silence to become its own kind of sound. 3 full seconds where the only thing alive in the room was the sound of people trying to breathe normally and failing. Then every screen came back at once. Not with a message, not with a warning or a threat or a face. With footage, live footage, dozens of feeds, tiling across every monitor in the safe house like a mosaic assembled from somewhere very far away and very wrong. Different locations, different continents, all of them streaming in real time. Malik moved closer without deciding to. His body pulled him forward before his mind had processed what his eyes were seeing. White rooms, impossibly clean, lit with the kind of cold, even light that hospitals use, the kind designed to leave nowhere to hide. Row after row of identical cribs, each one spaced with mechanical precision, and in each crib, an infant. Newborns, dozens of them across a dozen feeds. Maybe more. They were not crying. They were not sleeping. They were watching the ceiling. All of them, at the exact same angle, with the exact same stillness. That's not archived footage. Amara's voice had dropped to something barely above a whisper, the kind of quiet that comes not from calm, but from the body refusing to spend energy on volume when every nerve is already on fire. Marcus was typing, pulling timestamps, cross-referencing metadata. His finger stopped. "It's live," he said. Dr. Chun had gone pale in a way that Malik had never seen before. She was reading geodata, scrolling beneath each feed, her lips moving without sound. When she finally spoke, her voice was stripped of everything except the words themselves. How many facilities? The screen answered for them. It split and split again. Location stamps appeared one by one like a diagnosis being delivered in stages. Zurich, Nevada, Inner Mongolia, Patagonia, South Africa, Lagos. The number kept climbing. 6 became 9, 9 became 12, 12 became 17 before any of them could speak again. Malik felt a pressure in his chest that had no medical name. He pressed his fist against his sternum, as if he could hold something in. "They're still running it," he said. Dr. Chin shook her head slowly. What she said next came out barely above a breath. Each word chosen with the care of someone who understood exactly how much weight it carried. No, a pause. They made it bigger. The feed zoomed in on a single crib. A baby girl, newborn, days old at most. 2 thin electrode patches rested at her temples with a gentleness that made the whole thing somehow more disturbing, not less. Her heart monitor pulsed in a steady, indifferent rhythm, but her brain activity was something else entirely. It rose in waves, not the random electrical scatter of a sleeping infant, but a pattern, deliberate, repeating, something that had been put there. Marcus had stopped typing entirely. He was staring. "That waveform," he said quietly. Malik looked at him. "What about it?" Marcus turned. He looked at Malik the way a person looks at someone standing in a doorway they don't yet know is about to close behind them forever. "It matches yours." The silence that followed was total. Malik didn't move. He stood in front of the screen and looked at the baby girl and understood, with a clarity that felt like ice water replacing blood, what he was actually seeing. Not just an infant. Himself. His pattern. His frequency. The thing that made him what he was, extracted, replicated, and installed into a human being who hadn't yet learned to cry on purpose. A copy of something that had taken his entire life to become. Written into someone who had only existed for days. The baby blinked. 1 beat later, in the feed from Nevada, in the feed from Lagos, in the feed from every white room on every continent, every infant blinked. Together, the room felt smaller. "They're synchronized," Amara whispered. Dr. Chun forced herself closer to the screen, pulling on her clinical voice the way someone pulls on armor. It was the only thing she had left to hold herself together with. "No biological records," she said carefully. "No family registry. No birth certificates. Nothing." Marcus was already scrolling through the files flooding in. Artificial gestational programs, genetic templates, cognitive imprinting protocols beginning at day 1. Not day 30. Not day 7. Day 1. Before the eyes could focus. Before the lungs had fully learned their rhythm. before anyone had a chance to become anything other than what they were designed to be. They're not separating siblings anymore, Malik said, very quietly. He looked at Dr. Chun. They're designing them from scratch. Before she could answer, the footage glitched, a single violent frame of static, and then a face filled every screen in the room. Distorted at the edges, calm at the center, patient in a way that only people who believe they've already won can afford to be. The architect. Good evening, prototypes. No one in the safe house made a sound. I considered hiding Phase 5 a while longer, he continued, with the measured ease of someone delivering a prepared speech they've been waiting to give. But you've always been better at finding things than I planned for. I suppose that's my own design flaw. The smallest pause. I'm choosing to find it charming. You're running experiments on newborns. Malik's voice was flat and controlled, because flatness and control were the only weapons he had left. I'm removing the variables, the architect replied, that make people destroy each other. He said it without heat, without drama. The tone of a man explaining something obvious to someone he's decided to be patient with. I'm improving the species. What would you call it? I'd call it what it is. The architect tilted his head. He studied Malik with something that looked almost like fondness, the particular fondness of a craftsman looking at his most complicated piece of work. You were built on connection, he said. You know better than anyone what connection without control produces. A beat, deliberate and quiet. Chaos. Grief. Another beat. It landed. Malik absorbed it without showing what it cost him. The screens changed. Older children now, 5 years old, 10, teenagers, all in controlled rooms, all paired with one other person. Not a sibling, not a relative. A match selected by an algorithm that had never once considered what they wanted. Dr. Chun watched the footage with the expression of someone reading a diagnosis they already suspected and hoped they were wrong about. You're building a network, she said. Yes. For what? Loyalty that doesn't fracture under pressure, the architect said. Empathy that can be calibrated. A shared consciousness distributed across thousands of minds that were never taught to compete with each other, never given reason to betray, never burdened with the particular madness that comes from loving people you didn't choose. Marcus breathed the words out almost inaudibly. A distributed mind. Exactly, Marcus. The architect sounded genuinely pleased. The way a teacher sounds when a student finally arrives at the answer they've been steering them toward all along. Malik felt the weight of it settling into his chest like sediment. You're building something that doesn't need families. I'm building something, the architect said, that does not suffer because of them. Soo-Jin's voice came through the phone on the table. She'd been listening the whole time. Engine noise, a constant low roar in the background behind her words. She was already in the air, already moving. You think blood makes people dangerous? Blood makes people irrational, the architect replied. You're proof. All of you. You came back for each other when every rational calculation said run. You nearly destroyed everything, including yourselves, because of what you feel for people who share your DNA. He let sit. I am building people who will never have to make that choice. Amara struck the table with her palm, hard enough to make the equipment rattle. You cannot control consciousness. It doesn't work that way. You're certain of that? The feed changed one more time. A boy alone in a white room, 8 years old, maybe standing with his hands at his sides in the particular stillness of a child who has been taught that stillness is the correct response to being observed. No sibling, no twin, nothing to pair him to another human being by biology or history or any of the ordinary threads that tie people together. His brain monitor spiked. The screen split across the world in a room that shared nothing with the first one except the same relentless white light. Another child's monitor spiked at the identical moment, in the identical pattern, with the identical rhythm. No shared blood, no shared past, just signal. He solved the distance problem, Dr. Chun said, stepping back. Her voice had the hollow quality of someone watching a door close on something they can't retrieve. He doesn't need biology anymore, Marcus said. He sounded stunned in the specific way of someone who has spent years understanding exactly how something works and has just been shown it working in a direction they never considered. You are my proof of concept, the architect said. Phase 4 demonstrated that separation intensifies the signal when subjects are reunited. The bond strengthens under pressure. It was the most valuable data I've ever collected. A pause. Phase 5 asks a different question. What if we never create the separation to begin with? What if we build the bond before the wound can form? Phase 5 removes the weakness, Malik said. Phase 5, the architect corrected quietly, removes the wound. The distinction sat in the room like a stone dropped in still water, sending rings outward that no one could stop. The screens changed again. A simulation this time. A map of connections, hundreds of paired minds, all feeding into a single central relay. A hub, a core, the kind of infrastructure that doesn't get built in secret unless someone has been planning it for a very long time. Marcus leaned forward. The color left his face so completely that Malik could see it go. There's a central core, Marcus said. Where? The architect answered without hesitation. Prague. Dr. Chin's head turned sharply. On screen, underground maps resolved into tunnels. The tunnels resolved into chambers, and the chambers resolved into something vast and dormant buried directly beneath the bridge where all of this had started. A neural amplification core the size of concert hall. Built years ago, waiting with the patience of something that has never doubted it would eventually be used. You wanted us there, Malik said. The realization arrived not like a shock, but like the last piece of something he'd been assembling without knowing it. The whole time, every step we took, everything we found, you wanted us walking toward Prague. I needed the signal, the architect said simply. Your signal. You and Soo-Jin are the strongest pair this program has ever produced. The core was built around your frequency. It requires a key to activate. He looked directly into whatever camera he was using, directly at Malik, with a calm that was more frightening than any threat. You are the key. Soo-Jin's voice came through the phone, quiet and precise. Activate what exactly? The architect looked almost pleased, as if she'd asked the right question at precisely the right moment, and the right moment was one he had chosen. The next stage. The screen changed one final time. A countdown clock, already running. Not starting now, already mid-motion, already burning through time that could not be recovered. 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 43 seconds. The numbers dropped, one by one, unhurried. What happens when it reaches 0? Malik asked. The architect's expression shifted, not to a smile, to something quieter and more final than a smile. The expression of a man who has passed the point where outcomes can surprise him. Global synchronization. Every pair, every facility, every child we've built and shaped and connected over the last decade, unified through the Prague core in a single moment. One signal, one mind, billions of people going about their lives with no idea that the world they wake up in the next morning will be a different one than the world they fell asleep in. He leaned forward slightly. You can't stop it from outside. The core responds only to the signal it was calibrated around. A pause that felt like a door being closed gently on every exit they might have had. It responds to you. The screens went dark. No reboot. No static. No message. Just black. The same black as the beginning, but heavier now, carrying the weight of everything that had just been said. Amara was the first one to speak. She said it slowly, turning the shape of it over as she spoke, like something she was discovering in real time. He's not threatening us. Marcus looked at her. No, he agreed. He's inviting us. Marcus was already pulling up flight data, his hands moving before the thought had fully finished forming. Soo-Jin's crew, 45 minutes from Prague, already descending, already committed to a trajectory that would bring them directly to the thing the architect had spent years building them toward. Malik stood still and thought about the baby girl in the white room, her steady heart monitor, her eyes fixed on the ceiling with a calm she had never chosen. His waveform inside her brain, written there before she had learned her own name, before she had a name at all. He thought about what it meant that she would grow up and never know what had been done to her. Never know that somewhere in the architecture of who she was, there was a frequency that belonged to someone else first. If the core activates while we're on that bridge, We don't just power it, Marcus said. He wasn't looking at the screens anymore. He was looking at Malik with the particular seriousness of someone delivering information they wish they didn't have. We become part of it, permanently. There's no version where we walk away from that. Dr. Chun looked at Malik. What was in her face was something Malik had never seen there before in all the years he had known her. It took him a moment to name it. Fear. Not for herself. For him. He's not trying to kill you anymore, she said softly. I know, Malik said. A beat. He let the silence hold what words couldn't. That's what makes it worse. The engine noise on Soo-Jin's end had changed. The particular shift in pitch and pressure that comes with descent, with wheels beginning their slow hydraulic journey toward ground. She was already going down, already committed. Malik, I hear you. If we turn back, she said, the countdown ends without us. The core activates on the residual signal, weaker, but it activates. We don't stop it by walking away. We just make sure we're not there when it happens. And if you land, then we walk directly into it. She said it without drama. The way people say true things when there's no longer any point in softening them. But he designed us to be the key. A pause. And keys. Malik finished the thought before she could. Something in the way she'd begun it told him exactly where it was going, the way it always had, the way it had since before either of them had words for what that meant. Can also lock things shut. Or break in the lock, she said. Then we break. We've done it before. Neither of them ended the call. The line stayed open, and what passed between them in that silence was not words. It was the thing that the architect had spent his entire career trying to map and replicate and engineer into existence from scratch. The thing that couldn't be built, only grown, only earned, only survived into. Somewhere in his facility, watching two planes converge on a city that had no idea what was sleeping beneath it. The architect turned from his monitors and spoke to the assistant standing behind him. What if they find a way to reverse it? The assistant asked. Use the core against itself. The architect watched the city lights below his window. Patient, certain, the expression of a man who has considered every variable and found only one answer waiting at the end of each one. Then they'll have to understand it first, he said. A beat, and to understand it, the corner of his mouth moved, almost imperceptibly. They'll have to become it. On the plane, Soo-Jin's hand was white on the armrest. The team around her carried the same weight in their faces. Not the weight of people who hadn't thought it through, but of people who had thought it through completely and were still here. Still going down. Still choosing, with full knowledge of what the choice meant, to descend toward the thing waiting for them in the dark below a bridge in a city that didn't know their names. The wheels lowered. Prague rose to meet them. In the safe house, Malik looked at the countdown for a long moment. Then he looked at Amara, at Marcus, at Dr. Chun, at the people who had come back when they didn't have to, who had stayed when leaving was the smarter play, who were still here, still in this room, still in this fight, because of the specific, irrational, unengineerable fact of what they meant to each other. 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 19 seconds. If we're the prototypes, he said quietly. A beat, then we're also the test. He picked up his coat. One motion. No hesitation. The decision had been made somewhere before he'd known he was making it. In a moment, he'd seen his own waveform in a child who hadn't been born yet. Maybe, or earlier. Maybe it had always been made. Let's show him what we learned. And deep beneath the bridge, deep beneath the city, deep beneath the years of preparation and patience and waiting, the core breathed its first breath. Warm amber light spread through a vast dark chamber. Circuits pulsed like tissue. Chambers expanded like lungs. It had been dormant for years. It had never been worried. It had simply waited the way all things wait that were built to be inevitable. It inhaled and waited for them to come home. If you thought Phase 5 was the endgame, you haven't met what wakes up when the countdown hits 0. Episode 3, The Threshold. The key is in the lock. The only question left is which way it turns. Subscribe, because some doors, once open, cannot be closed.